8. CareerBoost Initiative by the Instripe Pathways Youth Foundation focused on product design and sustainable development goals (SDGs). The sections were anchored by our moderator, Akin Success. We had 2 expert speakers share insights on their respective topics on SDGs, along with a UI and UX specialist who has been with us since day 1. Now, let's dive into the lectures.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to today's session. Today is day 8. We've gone through 7 days of UIX design now, and I hope by now you already know what Figma is. You already know how to draw low fidelity wireframes and prototypes, how to connect your screens on prototypes too, and you also know how to conduct user research, how to come up with your user personas. You also know what the difference between UI and the difference between UX design is. Right, so for today's lesson, we'll be exploring the basics of visual design when it comes to UI, right? When it comes to user interface design. So we would be looking at things like color, things like typography, things like spacing, so that by the end of this class, you would have understood how all of these different elements that I mentioned, that is the color, the typography, the spacing, how all of these different elements, how they impact your user's experience and how you can apply them effectively when designing. Right, once again, I think we should appreciate the Instripe Pathway team for this CareerBoost initiative that they've offered. They are doing for African youths. So let us begin. First off, I think I should start with visual design itself. What exactly is visual design? So visual design is like an essential part, a very essential aspect of creating user-friendly products that includes apps and includes websites. So it also involves, like I mentioned earlier, using things like colors, things like typography, things that's fonts. When I say typography, I mean fonts and spacing to make sure that you improve or enhance the look, maybe the look and feel of that thing you're designing, which could be maybe a web app, a mobile app, whatever it is you're designing, right? So now, good visual design does not just make your app aesthetically pleasing, but it also improves the usability of that platform. So all of these things, that's the spacing, the way you space out content, if things are not too jumbled up together, the colors you use. Remember when I mentioned color blocking yesterday, or clashing of colors, exactly. So the colors you use, the emotions these colors would evoke from your users, what it will spur them to do, right? And the type of fonts you use. I think I mentioned a little bit about this too yesterday. The kind of fonts you use for what kind of content, right? So if it's supposed to be like for kids app, you're going to use more playful fonts. I think I should not yet start going deeply into all of that since I'm still going to talk about it. So let's start with colors. So colors play a very significant role when it comes to how your users would interact with something, with an app in this case, or with a website in this case. So the way they would perceive things, the way they would interact with it, colors is like an essential part of that. So it plays a very significant role when it comes to doing that. So with colors, you can evoke certain emotions, you can convey certain kinds of messages, you can influence people's decision, in fact, using colors. So like yesterday, I mentioned things like how red is usually associated with things that has to do with maybe danger, or urgency, like like the stop signs on your traffic lights. Exactly. And then there's the green lights that could mean maybe safety, like for traffic lights now it means go. So it just means that things are clear so you can proceed, that sort of thing. So when people see red in the first glance, you're telling them okay, proceed, but you're using red to tell them to proceed. Except your primary color is red, it's best to use a different color to convey that sort of message, right? So apart from I mean, you know the different kinds of colors. So there is also the part where we have color schemes. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with color schemes, but we have monochromatic colors, we have complementary colors, we have analogous colors. So when you're designing an app, it is very important that you choose a color scheme that aligns with the brand, right? So if the brand's color or their kind of vibe, for instance, let's go with Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola is, everybody knows Coca-Cola is red. Now imagine I'm trying to design something for them for maybe Children's Day, and I use black and white or gray and white to design for Children's Day for a brand like Coca-Cola. Obviously, I have missed the entire memo. Exactly. So you have to consider the brand you're designing for and then pick a color scheme that would match that brand. So if the brand is a very playful, energetic kind of brand, you can start complementing their colors with other colors that would like pop. So if, for instance, their color is blue, you can play around and use a little bit of orange here and there. All right, so things like that. So you can also go the analogous way. For instance, you have blue green, you have green, stuff like that. Now, that's for color scheme. Then we also have something that I mentioned yesterday that we call contrast. I already showed you guys. Did I? But I will show you today that you have to use darker colors on lighter backgrounds and use lighter colors on darker backgrounds. I hope you guys remember exactly. So you have to make sure with colors that the color you're using, there is enough contrast. It is called contrast. There is enough contrast between the element on top, in this case it's a text, and the background color, so that anything you're showing people, it's visible, it's readable, they can easily see what you are trying to pass across to them. Right. I hope we now understand colors when it comes to UI design. So I am going to move on to typography now. All right. Yeah, you hear me saying typography, you hear me saying text style, text field, you hear me say font. Exactly. So now typography refers to how text is usually arranged in your design. So that is what typography itself is. So when I say, what fonts are you using? It is the type of font you're using. Like this one now, if you say this is Roboto, okay. If you say this is Lato, okay. Maybe two different fonts. I really cannot remember what fonts I used here, but those are two different types of fonts. Now, the way I arrange all of these texts is what we refer to as typography. So, what's this now? You have to make sure that you are thinking of how readable, how legible your font is going to be when you're coming up, when you're like creating your typography style, that sort of thing. So when you're choosing a font, you have to select fonts that are very easy to read, especially if the content is supposed to be something that people are supposed to be able to read. So for instance, yesterday we're working like on a book reading app, or an app for book lovers. Exactly. So if I'm going to choose a font, I have to make sure that the font is something that is going to be very legible. There's something that they can easily read, because obviously they will be reading a lot on that app. And I don't want it to be that after 2 minutes they drop the app because they can't see anything and I'm stressing their eyes. Exactly. So you have to make sure that you're using fonts that are very easy to read. So we have different types of fonts. We have sans serif fonts, some sans serif fonts that I can remember off my head right now. We have Arial, we have Helvetica, right? So most people like to use sans serif fonts for body texts because they are usually cleaner and easy to read, even when the size is very small. So even if I use a font size of 12, it's usually you can still read it very well without like stressing your eyes or bringing out your glasses to see it. Yeah, you might, depending on how bad your eyes is, but yes, with sans serif fonts, you can still read very well, even at like smaller fonts. And then another thing that I want us to take note of under typography is hierarchy, right? Hierarchy. I did a little bit of that here. Not a little bit, but yeah, I did some hierarchy stuff here to differentiate between the title, then the bullet point itself, and then the supporting text for that point. So you can already tell the difference based on how I arranged them, right? So obviously, as you can see now, my title or my heading in this case is larger and bolder. So at first glance, it catches your attention, right? So now if I want to do a subheading, did I do any subheading somewhere? Exactly. So let's use this too. This is a very perfect example of hierarchy. So I have my my title text, and then I have my subheading here. So my heading, my subheading, you can see how very different they are. If I had done this font, this text here, to be the exact same thing as this visual design basics, you would assume that they are the same, like they're talking about their both headings, which is not true. So this is like the title of this session. And obviously, you already know what this is, the CareerBoost Initiative for African youth. And then for body text, you see how I did my body text here. That's the content itself. I used bolder text for my headings and then regular text for my body text. Same thing, regular text, exactly. So that is for hierarchy. But you have to still make sure that your body text is still legible, right? Even at maybe sizes of like 14, 12 pixels, your body text should still be very readable. People should not like strain their eyes before they see what you're talking about. Then another thing is to be consistent. When it comes to UI design, a lot of things a lot of things can actually go wrong. But one thing that you have to make sure you keep on lock is consistency. So if you're using a particular type of font, make sure you stick to that font throughout your app. So I usually recommend, or the standard is, you do either 2 different types of fonts or maximum of 3 throughout. If you're designing an app, don't go above 3 different types of fonts so that it doesn't start confusing the user. So that they don't start thinking, are we still talking about it? Are we still using the same platform? Exactly. So make sure that you use at least maybe 3 different types of fonts. Moving on from typography, I am moving to spacing now. Now, for spacing is like the empty space. Like the empty space that is left around elements in your design. Like you can see, I have some spacing between my title and my text here. I have another spacing, like a spacing between these 2 text, so don't crowd everything together, leave enough space to get. You see there is a lot of spacing between. That is what spacing is about. Now you have to make sure that you space your elements properly. It will help you to create a very clean and organized layout, right? So when you're designing, there's something we call negative space or white space. White space, yes. So white space is usually like the empty space around your elements. So it makes sure that your content is not like jumbled together, like overcrowded, right? And it makes things easier to read. So if I had jammed all of these things together, you might strain your eyes before you can read what this is. But because I have spaced it out in a way that it now gives a sense of, okay, you can easily read this first line and still read the second line too. So one thing I'll recommend is when designing, make sure to use white space strategically. Make sure to use your white spacing strategically so it can help you to like separate different sections in your app. So if for instance you finished one section of the app and you're going to another section, you don't have to like put a demarcator or any sort of thing like that. You can just use space to indicate. So when people see things grouped together as one, they assume that in close proximity, they assume that they are one thing. Then when you leave more space and then go to another line, they assume that the next line is the start of something else. Do we understand? Then there is something we call padding and margins. I'll show you all of this in Figma when I get there. So there is something called padding. Padding is like the space inside your elements. So I can't show. Let me see. Okay. You see this stuff here, UI UX design. You see the spacing between this N and this edge is called padding. It's called margin actually, but it's padding. This part is like the margin. But yeah, it's called padding. The space between this bottom part here and the where you see the horizontal axis of this text exactly is called padding. Same thing. So all the space around this edge like this is called padding. I hope you understand. So now padding is like the space inside your elements, and what's it called now? Margin is just the outer side, the two outer side, that's all. So when you're designing, you have to make sure that there is enough padding so that they are very easy to click. So if for instance this thing was supposed to be a button, obviously you can easily click on it because I have added enough padding on both sides, right, or across around the element. And you have to make sure that throughout your design your padding is consistent. Throughout your design your padding is consistent. So there is also something called alignment. I showed you a bit of that yesterday when we were designing, when I was aligning to the center and stuff like that. Exactly. So there is alignment. When you're aligning elements, you have to make sure that you can use, I said I was going to show you guys layout grids, and I am going to do that. So with layout grids, you can easily align your objects, and you saw with Figma yesterday, it was showing you where to like drop your elements to make sure that they are on the same maybe x-axis or y-axis. Exactly. So that is for that. Now for today's activity, we are going to design a simple login screen, and we're going to pay attention to the colors, to the fonts, to the spacing. Now let me just go back to like summarize everything I have talked about before we start designing. So visual design, the basics: we have color, we have typography, we have spacing. And I said they're like very essential components when it comes to creating user-friendly platforms. These platforms include your websites, your apps, exactly. So now, when you understand how these things work and how they impact your users' experiences, you can not only not only create designs that are beautiful, are like aesthetically pleasing, but you would also design stuff that are like functional that people can actually use, right? And I said that colors evoke emotions and you should make sure to choose them carefully, right? And then I also, for typography, I mentioned that with your typography, you have to make sure to use clear fonts that have good, and also work on arranging them properly, hierarchy. And for spacing, I said spacing will help you to improve the usability of your app, one, and it will reduce crowdiness on your design. So yeah, let's start designing so that I can show you all of these things that I have mentioned. All right, so now to the design part. I think I should start from, let's take it from the back, spacing. Okay, this was yesterday's. Let's create another page. And let's see visual design basics. Right, so by now I believe you know how to get a frame. So let's use a desktop frame this time. Desktop frame, good. And I mentioned that I was going to show you guys how to add your layout grids, and that it will help you with your spacing. Okay, so now this is how you do that. You come here, you see this layout grid, you click on this plus button. You can now see that it has added like boxes. If you've seen your graphs before, that used for maybe mathematics and stuff, or physics, exactly. So this is like a graph, but it's just, yeah, basically like a graph. So you come back to this layout grid, and you see this part with like dots. Click on it. It's for the settings, and then we're now going to change this entire thing. So the first thing to do is to select this grid and change it to columns. You see what just happened? Created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. So it grouped everything into 5 columns. But we don't want 5 columns. So let's do a column count of 12. So you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now, remember when I told you guys about margin, that it is the space between the element and the edge, the outer part of your screen. So this edge and this edge, you see it now. So currently the margin is 0. So I'm going to change the margin to 20. So you see what just happened? It added space here. In fact, let's go wilder. Let's make it 70. So you can see the difference. That is your margin. So this is a margin here of 70 and a margin on your right of 70. Now the spacing between 2 columns, this white space between each column, this space between this column and this column, is called a gutter. And currently our gutter is 20. So we can change the gutter to maybe 40. You see that it just increases the space, but I prefer to keep it at 20. Right, and then obviously this color is just to show you the color of the columns, so that when you're designing and placing content on it, it doesn't blend into your design itself. So you can also change it if you feel like to something else. But make sure that it's not too bold. You can sort of put a transparency of 10%. If we put it as the full color of 100%, it's too much. So that's why I put it at like 10%, so that you can still put stuff on top of it and it won't like be a distraction, but it's still going to guide your design. So that's for columns. And if you want to add another layout grid, now if you want to add a different, you can do the same thing. So add like a different layout grid. You know, we already have the columns, that's your vertical lines, and you can do the same thing for your rows, that's your horizontal lines. So rows go like this, columns go like this. Exactly. So now, if you want to do that, we just follow the same steps. Come here, click on plus, do this, change to rows. I'm sure you remember the same way we did it earlier. Then change the count. If you want to, let's use 8 this time. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Then we can also change the margin like we did for the columns to 70, and then we have the same gutter. Right, so that is for layout grids. Now, these layout grids, why are they important? It helps you to space out your objects well. So I think we should change the count of our columns to 8 so that you can understand better. Right? And let's see now. If I want to draw a square that would start from this point, end at this point too, and end here, I just have to do this. I don't know the exact measurement, but with this layout grid now, I can easily see how Figma, you can see the red line that Figma is telling me, oh yeah, stop, you are here already. And I can Ctrl D to duplicate. So you see that Ctrl D, and the spacing between each of them will be equal. Spacing of 20, 20, 20. Can you see that? So I can do the same thing. Ctrl D, duplicate it here, and use the same spacing. Do you see that? So that's how spacing work. So if I hide this grid, sorry, if I hide this grid, this is what I will have. You see that? So if I want to put content here, maybe like images, text, whatever, I have made sure that the spacing between everything there, they are equal. And even if I do this, you see that spacing between the margin is 20, I'm sorry, 70, then the spacing between two objects are 20. Everything is equal. See that? See that? So, all right, to check the spacing between objects, I am using my Alt key, ALT. So you click on Alt and over on the object. Click on Alt and over on the object. But if you're using a MacBook, click on Option key and over on the object. So that's how you do spacing. Now for spacing, I always recommend using like multiples of let's say 4s. So you can do 4 spacing of 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, like that. So you keep, multiplying it like that just to make sure that, because I've noticed that it has like, and I think there is a principle that guides this, but I can't really remember it right now. You make sure that your objects are very legible, and you still have like a very clean interface. So that's for spacing. Now for colors, make sure, like I said, that you use colors that contrast well against each other. So let's say I use a red card and then my background is now red. Now you see that if my text, let's use a text here. Let's write something. CIAY training. You see, you can see how this contrasts well because I am using white against a dark background. Let's increase the size so that you guys can see it well. I just want to align this guys well. Alright, so you see this. Now let's assume I now use, let's say, a shade of red. Can you see how bad that is? That's exactly why you have to make sure that, imagine, without knowing if you didn't know what I typed, how easily you'd have to like strain your eyes to see what I wrote here. And that's very poor design. You have to make sure that your objects contrast well against each other to get like to make sure. You see how that makes it better. Although it's a light color, but you see this is bad. Keeps getting worse because it's moving towards a closer shade of the red we used to write. So it just looks like, I mean, nobody will be able to read this. Now imagine designing a book app and this is the color of text and this is the color of your background. A book app where people are supposed to be able to read. Obviously doesn't make any sense. So yeah, that is for colors. I think with typography, I already showed a little bit of what's it called now? That went with my slides. So just to refresh your memory, if you're using for your headers, make sure you're using bold texts, right? And for your like, let's go back to yesterday's design. Or was it deep for yesterday? Yeah, this one. You see, this is like our title, our heading text, and then this is the supporting text, the subheading. You see the difference, hierarchy, a different color, a different color, a different weight, a different weight, a different size, a different size, just to make sure that you know that this one is the more prominent one, and then this is just like the supporting text. I hope you understand. So our activity for this week, we're supposed to design a simple login screen, and we are going to focus on not just the color now, we're going to focus on the spacing, we're going to focus on typography, and we're going to focus on the color. Are we ready? Begin. Let's clear up, or no, let's do this. Let's use a different frame. So let's start with desktop. Leave the background as white. Well, let's try a different background color. Let's do, what is CIAY's color for this? I think, is it purple or green? Okay, green. So let's just use green background. I think it's a darker green. Okay. Now, so first thing I'm going to do, let's rename this to login. So our plan is to balance colors, not just colors, balance the typography and make sure that we do our spacing properly. So what am I going to do first? I will start with, since it's a login page, I will start with my input fields. What are my input fields? Those are the places that I'll be typing in my email and my password. So let's start. What's the first thing? Enter email address, right? And remember yesterday when I talked about, I spoke a little bit about auto layout and how to do it, that you can either right click, you can either do Shift A or Ctrl Z. You can group this first and right click and do press add auto layout. But this one is like a lot of stress, so I just like to do Shift E. You see already we have our auto layout. So I'm going to add a background color to this guy. But before I do that, I'm going to change the color of this text. So let's use a darker color. You would see why I am doing this in a bit. Now let's add a background color to this input field. So you see that I still feel like this color is too light, it's too dark, sorry. So let's change it a bit. it, because it's not the actual email address you're typing, it's just like a placeholder. So I'm going to extend the length of this guy and change the alignment to the left. You see that? So we have this because we're using what's it called? Let's add the layout grid. So the spacing will be easier to do. Someone like me is already used to design, so I already know exactly what I'm doing, but for the sake of people that are just starting out, let's do that. And let's make this 8 so that we would have like equal spaced out objects. All right, so let's start from the center here. Let's start from center here and do some halfway here and some halfway here and center it. All right, enter email address. This is like a placeholder text. So once you start typing, you notice that if you use apps a lot, you notice that this part usually disappears. Then you start typing in the actual email address and it shows exactly. So that's what we're doing right now. This is called a placeholder text because it is just an holder. It is not the actual content. So we're going to add the helper text. Let's increase the height of this to like 16, and let's make this 16 too. Remember, we're using multiples of 4, and let's duplicate this like this and put enter what now? Password. Right, we can group this now and add auto layout so that it's easier. So let's do that and add spacing of like 24. Let's do 32. And let's do 6 and add the background white. So I'm going to add a stroke around this too so that it's more obvious that it's an include field. I'm not going to use black. I'll use a very light gray so that it's cleaner. It looks better. And then I'll add a little corner radius. Let's say 4. Just so that it's not, the edges are not too sharp. Just so that enter password exactly. Now, the next thing we're going to do is add the helper text. So what I'll do is just paste this and say email address, and then I will group these two so that they are closer to each other. So you know that they're talking about the same thing. Let's do spacing of 8 and change the size so that you know that this is more important to look at. Then let's use as medium and change this to black, to a darker shade. So you see that. And we'll do the same for the other one, this one, and change the spacing to 8, change this to password, right? Then what else we usually have on password screens? The spacing between these two should be 24, so it doesn't look too far away from each other. Another thing that usually on login pages, you have a forgot password field. So let's do forgot password, and you can move it to the right. So you see what I just did to move this to the right, exactly. So this is right aligned, this is left aligned, center aligned to the top, center line centered, then the center to the bottom, center to the bottom right, where we just centered to the right. So forgot password. And then the next thing we would add is what now? Let's add our title and supporting text. Remember the reason why this is coming this way is because we centered this to the center. So what I'm going to do is I'll change this now to fill the container and center it. Let's use left around to look cleaner and change the size since it's a bigger text to welcome back to CIAY. And let's use 24 instead with a semi-bold. And then the next one will be please, what do I click? Please enter your details to log in. Obviously, I can't use this big text because now it's taking focus away from this. But let's just do 16 and medium and change this to a. You see what I'm doing with colors to show hierarchy. And now group these two together and give them a spacing of 8 so that they look closer together. Right, you see what I have done now. Let's add some radius, corner radius to this guy. Let's do 16. See how the edges are no longer sharp. Is this centered? Okay, yes, it is. If I have CIAY's logo with me, all I have to do is include it somewhere here. Now let's put our button that when you finish typing, you will log in. How can we do that? You can start off with your text again. And log in and do auto layouts as usual. For this time, let's do 24 and let's do 16. And what color should we use for our button? Let's do this green. So we'll use our color picker to pick the green. Use our color picker to pick the green. Obviously, you can already see that this is terrible contrast because this color is dark, our background is dark. So let's change the color of the text to a white color so that it's more pronounced. And what I am going to do now is it should fill the content. Do you see that? And I'm going to do the same add corner radius. Can we see that now? So this is our login button, and then the last thing would be if you are new. So if you are new, we say don't have an account or new to CIAY. With my cursor. New to CIAY. Create accounts. So you see what I am going to do here. Change this to a darker shade so that it's more obvious, and change create account so that people know that you can click on it and it's a button to the same color as this button. You see that? Now I'm going to try to elevate this card, this login card, by adding a shadow. How do I do that? Come to effects. If you've noticed something, you see a shadow. So it's not subtle, but you can see it's shadow. Now I'm going to try to elevate it further so that you guys can see it well. So let's do y-axis, which should be 8. still, and then let's do x as it should be 4. So you can see it now, right? But it's still not very obvious. So let's add a lower, or say 20. So you see that? And let's, don't think we can spread this out. Let's increase this to 12 so that it comes out more. Increase this to 8 so that it comes out more. Okay. Alright, so you see that, and it is centered. This is a simple login page. Now I feel like if we had a logo, let me find a logo somewhere, it would make this pop up more. Or let's just put maybe let's use a waving hand, like, oh, welcome, or welcome, something to just, make it look nicer. So let's do wave. I don't like this waving ones. I think I should just search for hands. Which one do you guys think I should use? All right, I think I'm seeing what I want now. Maybe this. Okay, maybe. Let's import. Where is it? Okay. So I think because it is, let's change this to be right aligned, to be left aligned, and change this one to fill container with left aligned. Alright, and let's increase the size of this waving hand so that it's more obvious. So like, let's double it 64. And since we are going with green, I think we should change all of these bluish things to something of the green side. So let's just come in. Now this is color, but this time it's not a solid color, it's a gradient. That's multiple colors. So you can do gradients of 2, gradient of 2 colors, gradient of 3 colors, gradients of 4 colors. So let's just change this to something like the green family. I'm just picking random grains, by the way, because I don't really know what's about to sit down and start trying to figure out. But yeah, random grains, just to change all the blues to, like, grains, grain. Oh, we have a lot of blues. Might look awkward because, yeah, okay, no one looks so bad. I think it looks well, it looks okay. So this is a simple login page that has been designed. I feel like this shadow is still kind of harsh, so let's do 20%, and let's make it the block 24, or let's do 40%. So it doesn't look harsh. Let's do 16. This is the kind of numbers I've been using. That's just me. So we can move this guy to like the top. It's 116. Alright, now we can play a prototype. So this is how you present. If you want to present to like maybe stakeholders and stuff, you can just click on this plus button to present. I'm not sure if you guys can see this screen, but voila, does this not look like a login page as you see? Exactly, so this is your login page. I would like you guys now to take the rest of this time to recreate this um, login screen. I don't know if you have questions, you can let me know so that I can help you expand more on it. Bye, guys. See you tomorrow. 2 more days to go.
Everyone, welcome to this lecture. My name is Albright Chineme Ikwemesibe, and I will be talking on the topic achieving gender parity in leadership. We'll be looking at the strategies and the challenges that faces gender parity in general and also in leadership. Welcome again. Before I talk a little bit about myself, I would love to appreciate Instride Pathways Youth Foundation for having me here and also for putting together this annual 30-day career boost initiative for African youth. This is really lovely and it is giving back to the community. Well done, Instride Pathways. Right. Okay, straight to who I am. Well, like I said, my name is Albright Chinime Ikwesibe. I'm a Nigerian graduate of the University of Ibadan. I studied European Studies and I am a deep lover of global affairs and sustainable development. During my undergraduate days, I was a member of the University of Ibadan Model United Nations, whereby we had simulations about the United Nations, and I had an introduction in how diplomacy works, international politics works, and it created a passion inside me. And from there, I collaborated with SDG Like Minds to execute project, which was aligned with the SDG 3, which is good health and well-being, SDG 4, quality education, and SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. I love to see myself as a visionary change leader, future ambassador, and catalyst for change. Before we go right in the into the topic, I would love to say this. I want us to have a passion about the SDG, not because that we it is a list of things that a government body or an organization put together uh, and it's used to sort out things and making plans on SDGs can probably get you a job and such like that or opportunities. But I want us to see the SDGs as a way to give back to the community. This is a list of problems that are facing the world globally. Each and every different parts of the world are facing this various I these various problems listed as the SDG 17. If you don't know anything about them, I would love to indulge you into them. I would love that you go back, do your studies on them right after this lecture and know what they are. See what you want to do and start working on it, see what interests you and start working on it so that you can live in a changed world, in a world suitable for you, and we are living a more suitable world for our next generation. Yes, so we're going to be talking about this is the overview for the whole for the whole lecture. We're going to be looking at the definition of gender parity. We're looking at importance of achieving gender parity. We're going to be looking at the state of gender parity globally. We're going to be looking at right here. We're going to be looking at the statistics and what countries are actually facing when it comes to gender parity. Then we'll look at the challenges to the strategies in achieving gender parity. I would love us to go through the challenges before getting to the strategies because we cannot look at a solution if we don't know what the problems are. Once we know what the problems are, we can figure out okay, what's the next step for us in achieving gender parity. Okay, now to the definition. Parity refers to equal representation and participation of women and men in terms of numbers, roles, and decision-making power in all aspects of life. This simply means that in every aspect of life, in workforce, in leadership, in a boardroom filled with executives, or brainstorm brainstorm meeting, or a parliamentary in a country, both men and women are equally represented there. We both have men and women there. We just don't have more numbers of men or and less numbers of women, or more numbers of women and less number of men. We need to have both more numbers of men and both more numbers of women equally represented there, and with an equal chance to speak and voice out their initiative and all. What are the importance of achieving gender parity? When it comes to achieving gender parity, we would be looking at getting to gender parity brings us to better decision making. When we have both a male and a female working on, let's say, a product that would serve the public, we need a a solution, right? A product is meant to serve, to sort out a problem, and so we need a solution from both a male and a female, so that once their minds are put together, it can both serve the public, the general public, both the male and female. For example, let's say a toilet. If you've ever passed a male toilet and looked into it, just for some reason, if you're female or if you're male and you visited a male toilet, you'll see there's a urinal bowl there where it is easy for male to ease themselves there. But meanwhile, in if a woman was just in the decision making of that, of all toilets, oh, they would just say this is how it's comfortable for women. I don't think we need it in any other way. They would not be able to see, okay, how is it going to serve the men in the public. So the next importance is for increased innovation. Gender parity in leadership fosters creativity, innovation, and problem solving. Men and women think differently, while they think differently individually. Let me come again slowly. A man can think differently based on his gender and based on his individuality. So if you subject the public space to the public work or leadership to just a male person, there will not be a vast there will not be a vast innovation or infrastructure in the world in general. Meaning that, okay, if a man is about to think about everything, he might not be able to cover everything. A woman as their own self, and as the gender, as a female, possesses innovations that she herself brings to the table, and everybody's voices accordingly should be heard. And the next one is economic growth. We To raise the GDP of a country, you need more work laborers in the workforce. That means both men and women should be accorded accordingly to the workforce, so that there can be growth in the economy, and it also brings equal competitiveness. Both male and female can compete to get a leadership role, or to get a top role or in a company and such. Now, to the state of gender parity globally, we're going to be talking on the statistics. Mind you, Okay, sadly, the gender that has suffered from imparity is the female gender. We're going to be talking a lot about the female gender when it comes to the statistics, because based on history, based on our current state, the women have been subjected to just the private sector. For example, during the Nazi Germany of 1933, when Adolf Hitler was ruling Germany, there was a propaganda whereby the women were not allowed to be seen in public work. Meanwhile, they were allowed to stay in the private work, meaning they had to cook. They were allowed to cook. They were even motivated to cook, to clean, and to take care of the children as their job, their day-to-day job. Like that's their job. And if you sector, like in the public work, she's either a cleaner or a clerk. In today's world, we still have some conservative countries whereby they don't allow their women to work. They keep them, and if the women want to work in public sectors, they go through a lot of laws and a lot of strictness before they can get to work. And every day it's a struggle for them to work. Doing what they love is a struggle for them. And this is the statistics based on the World Economic Forum. This is the Global Gap Report for 2024, according to the World Economic Forum. They stated that 146 countries included in the edition for 2024 stands at 68.5% for the global gender gap closed. There are 146 countries that were included in 2024, and they are just 68.5% through. Meanwhile, they are heading to 100%. That means the gender gap for allowing both men and female to be in the workforce, in the public workforce, has just been closed by 68.5%, just within 146 countries. Meanwhile, the United Nations recognized 195 countries. You can imagine the gap that still need to cover in this. And it further said, compared against the construct sample of 143 countries included in 2023, the global gender gap has been closed by a further plus 0.1% from 68.5% to 68.6%. That means if it is being compared to what they had last year, which they had 143 countries, it's only covered by plus 0.1%. In the orange part in this graph, you would see the that this is the list of countries, and in the blue part, that's the percentage. The list of countries did increase. That is a plus for us, for the world, but then there's still so much more to do, because if it's compared, it's just plus 0.1%. That is not a lot of coverage. They furthered by saying, when considering 101 countries covered continuously from 2006 to 2004, the cap has also improved by plus zero point 0.1 points. In 2006, they had 101 countries, and in 2004, they have 146 countries. That's a lot. That's a plus. They had 45 countries added. But then, if you see the number of years that before they got that countries, the remaining countries added, quite it's quite far, and the gap that has been able to close meanwhile is also quite little. The the World Economic Forum for that by saying, based on the current database, the World Economic Forum concluded that it would take 134 years to reach full parity, and that is roughly 5 generations beyond the 2030 Sustainable Development Goal target. The SDG 7 was created for it to be hit at 2030, but then they are saying it will take 5 generations to achieve full parity, 5 generations beyond to achieve full parity in the world. That is like that is like yeah, that's a lot of years. That's a lot of years to achieve this. Uh, the top 10 countries that has been able to close the gender gap in their country, in their economy rather. So the World Economic Forum also listed 10 countries whereby they were able to close the gender gap in their economy. And if you look at them, you will notice that 7 of the countries are from the European Union, and 3 of them are from either the Eastern Asia and the Pacifics, meaning that the European Union are mostly the countries that are into achieving gender parity. But if you check it out, you will also notice that the European Union are also going further in achieving most of the SDGs, especially going green and cutting on climate change and dealing with climate change. And if you notice, first um the first country listed is just 93.5% into achieving gender gap. That is a lot of progress, I must say. But then, like I have been saying, there is still work to be done. In general, 97% of the economies included in this edition have closed more than 60% of their gap, compared to the 85% of the economies in 2006 edition, making the economic participation and opportunity gap closed by 60.5%. This is a lot of work being done on achieving it, and the economic participation and opportunity gap globally has been closed by 60.5%. We have like roughly roughly 40% to go. The political empowerment gap has been closed by 22.5%, and the women accounting for 42% of the global workforce. When it comes to the political side of, like, when it comes to women in politics globally, we just have 22.5. And me, we're talking about leadership here. Why not the political aspect of leadership? Women are in politics, but they are not really appreciated, they're not really encouraged. We see that people there are some countries that don't appreciate women presidents, but thank God that we're having a few women presidents come up, and a few female presidential candidates coming up, and it's such a relief. But 42% of the global workforce, that's where women are. And like I said, we're going to be talking mostly about women because they're the ones that have suffered. But I say suffer now, but then they haven't gotten gender parity in the workforce. Talk less of leadership. Parity in parliamentary representation reached a record high of 33% in 2024, nearly doubling since 2006, which had 18.8%. In 2006, there was only 18.8 parity. Now it is 33. percent. I know of countries that just opened their parliamentary to females before they only had male in their parliamentary, and there are some countries that have females in their parliamentary, but whatever they say do not count. They are just there to to say, oh, okay, we have them there. Then we have up women make up over half of the workforce base in non-STEM roles, having 47.3%, while a third in STEM sectors of 28.2%. STEM means science, technology, engineering, and math. And now this is what they call professional roles. Meanwhile, we have 28.2% of women in those roles globally, while we have 47.3% of women in non-STEM roles. There is no work that is not important and important, but allow me to say it like this. According to their statistics or their yardstick, women are not really in the important work. We just have 28.2% of representation of women in in quotes important work. Now to the challenges, then we'll look at strategies in achieving gender parity. One of the challenges we have faced is unconscious bias and stereotyping. This is when uh, a male says that, oh, okay, she's a female, she can't do this work, or she's a female, she's too emotional, she's a female, or trying to beat down or stereotyping now, where they say that, oh, that work is for males, it's not for me, or they say that work is for female, it's not for me. Hey, that is absolutely absurd, because there is nothing like a male's work and there is nothing like a female's work. Every work should be done according to each person's capacity, and a capacity is built based on your experience, based on your willingness to learn, based on what you know and how you execute things. So there is nothing like women's work, there is nothing like male's work. And funny enough, we have cultures, religions that have grounded this stereotype words, stereotype um jobs in us and make us think like, okay, a male can't do that. Why would a male be a nurse? Why would a male be cooking? That is really absurd. And the solution to this is bias training. I would also say that before a person can train another person in not being biased, the person has to come to the terms of fact that everybody is equal, both male and female, and everybody has equal chances in achieving their goals and their dreams in life. Everybody can reach out to do something if they want to do it, if their heart has been set to it, and if they're equally, or their experience, they're qualified. Yes. So when we have bias training in our hearts, where we see a male doing a particular work, we don't stereotype him. When we see a female doing a particular work, we don't stereotype her. That's when the bias training, we start by ourselves and start to talk to other people when we hear them say such like, a woman does not have a say in any discussion. This is men's talk. We have to put that down and say no. Hey, this is not so. This is not according, and that's where the bias training starts from. The next problem is lack of representation and role models. People, let me say now, people are looking for role models to look up to, because a female now can be in her bedroom or in her classroom thinking that, oh, I want to really be a governor, but then my father has said that my schooling has to stop in secondary school. How would I learn? How would I know what to do? There should be role models going out and helping those people of people that have already mounted a sphere of influence. Let's say, for example, if a female wants to into politics, if a woman that is in politics and influential enough, she can come back and give to the community. I've seen different politicians in other countries calling females from various countries into a conference room and telling them their experiences, giving them advices on how to do it. And when people that aspire to be this, when they see them that there is a person that is already doing it, trying to break the status quo, they are much more motivated. So I guess I've already talked about the solution already, which is implementation of mentorship and sponsorship programs, and people that are influential already in that sphere of influence comes back and sponsor people. Okay, you want to be this, I'm gonna sponsor your education to do this. Okay, you want to do this, fine, I'm going to sponsor you to do it. Likewise, a female can also sponsor a male that wants to do this. Like I said, there is no diversity, there is equality. When people want to do something and you know they are motivated enough, they are qualified enough, we give to them back by helping them, by sponsoring them. Likewise, even people that are not yet in the influential role, you can motivate them into doing what their heart desires. The next problem we see is work life balance. Like I said again, I'm going to be using the female as an example because we all know the female to be the one in the home. They're the ones that get pregnant, they're the ones that have to nurse and all like and stuff like that. So when it comes to work life balance, I want to use an example of Iceland, and most of the European countries still that give their workers, their male workers, paternity leaves. You know, when a female puts to bed, she goes on a maternity leave, taking care of the children. Also in countries like Iceland, in countries like Iceland, Italy, Poland, Singapore, Spain, Netherlands, they offer 100% pay for full duration of paternity leave. Yeah, again, I've already into the strategy enacting of paternity and maternity leave. When an organization or a government gives their male workers who have wives that are put to bed paternity leave to go home and take care of their children, take care, nurture the baby, because the a baby, the children, they don't just need just the father, just the mother. They also need the father. I've seen children that don't grow up. They don't grow up right. They grow up with insecurities and low self-esteem because they didn't find their father figure right in the home. Their father was taking care of the bills and working 247, but in initiating paternity leave and maternity leave, even any kind of leave, just to give them some break. Even the workers themselves, they go on break, and the and the workers go on break, and even during childbirth. I know I know of a system whereby the wife goes on her maternity leave for the first 3 months, whereby her husband comes the next 3 months for his paternity leave and takes care of the child, while the wife is allowed to go back to work and focus on her career. That is where there is balance, there is a workspace balance, there is a home balance, that's a healthy environment. Also, when the children are getting older, we can have the mother can have the drop off and the father have the pick up, meaning that the mother have the time for the children during the morning, take care of them and take them to school, while the father brings them back from school and take care of them and play with them and have some time with his children. The next problem is resistance to change. Resistance to change. We have different cultures around us. We have different religions that support some things and they're being conservative. Of course, they know why they have these structures in place to ensure that there is safety and there is no intrusion, there is no sin and such like that. The strategy is to make structures to reforms. When reforms come about where they say, oh, let's allow our wives to be in the public space, let's allow our females to be in the public space, and there's a kind of resistance, you can an organization or the government can assure that place, that particular environment, that particular tribe, that there's going to be a structure to make sure that there is not going to be any crossing of boundaries, right? There will not be spoiling, there won't be any spillage of culture, of tradition, and stuff like that. So these are industry specific challenges and strategies we have for the STEM fields. Addressing the underrepresentation of women in science, technology, engineering, and math, we can go by engaging from the start. Governments can, or schools in particular, can ensure that their children, their students, their students learn from an early stage things on science, technology, engineering, and math. It's not that the instead of classifying it, before classifying it, probably in the primary school or in the junior secondary school, every child is implemented into the STEM field. They know everything particular they should know about it. They have a strong foundation to this. So when there is a problem, they don't look for particular professionals because everybody knows as to an extent, everybody knows how to incorporate this field. Then the next one is corporate boardrooms. We need to increase women's representation on corporate boardrooms, in corporate boards. And yes, then the next one is politics and government. Achieving gender parity. This is achieving gender parity in elected and appointed positions. This boils down to individual bias and not picking a leader based on gender. Because I have seen whereby a female is running against a male in the presidential race, and oh, they say, oh, she's a woman, don't allow the woman be there, or let a man take the job, is a man's work. There's nothing like a man's work. Again, I'm saying that again. Then, best practices and case studies. This is what we need to implement, or this is how we can implement the strategies, right? This is successful organizations. Analyzing companies that have achieved gender parity in their leadership, asking them like, oh, okay, you were able to achieve gender parity in this, like let's say country companies in Iceland. We'll ask them, how were you able to do this? What was the balance? And also, they can bring out more strategies into this. Then the next one is country specific initiative, examining national policies and programs on gender parity. Like I said, there are different countries that have different propaganda and policies And when we examine national policies that encourage women to be in the public workforce in leadership, we're able to know and say, oh, okay, this is how we're going, how they did it. Let's see if this works for us, and if in the long run, if it works, will they implement the policy in full. Then lesson learned, sharing experiences and insights from leaders who have driven gender parity initiatives. Now we go, like when we go to different leaders or different organizations and looking at, oh, okay, there are more men represented and also more women represented. How did you do this? Learning from them and their process. So I would love to give you a little charge. As much as we talk about the main gender and how the male gender is there, we are not trying to demean the male gender at all. But then we all know that the female gender needs a lot of work, and we know that we need more women in spaces so that economics economic economic growth of different countries and even the world in general can bloom. We need to we need to motivate our females. We need to motivate the women in our countries, the women in our organizations, the women in our in our schools. We need to motivate them in being empowered in different spheres of life, be it politics, be it the media, be it wherever, computer in tech, be it wherever. We need to empower them and encourage them to be there.
Good day, everybody. Um, Welcome to this time our topic of presentation for in-stripe pathways. I want to appreciate the planners of this program trying to enhance and impact on the youth in Africa. I want to thank in-stripe pathways for bringing this in out to help the youth to grow, career growth, career boost, and all that. So today we are talking about, we are presenting on the topic awareness and control of sexually transmitted diseases among adolescents in selected secondary schools in Benue State, Nigeria. So let's start. I welcome you all. The name of the presenter is Mr. Godwin Onduhemba Ionengi. He's a Nigerian, as you can see in the profile. He's a Nigerian researcher intending to pursue his PhD in community and population health at University of Saskatchewan, based in Canada. He has his MSc, that is Master of Science degree in Demography and Population Studies from University of Nigeria, Nsukka. He holds his bachelor's degree in Sociology from University of Jos, Nigeria. His area of research interest include human fertility, social epidemiology, sexual and reproductive health, neglected tropical diseases, HIV and AIDS, socio-economic circumstances. He's also an MIE specialist working with NGO across the country. So let's start. the overview of this presentation, first of all, we have to know the background introduction of what awareness and control of what is sexual transmitted disease, what is it all about? That is the background introduction. Then we want to know the nature of sexually transmitted diseases, STD. What is awareness? How did you become aware, and how is the control of this disease? Then we talk about sexual transmitted disease and attainment of sustainable development goals. Then we conclude. So let's proceed. Well, when you talk about sexual transmitted diseases, you globally you know that it is a disease. It's a public health disease. Public health disease, the major concern, it affects young people across their lifespan. It don't matter the age, the gender, the religion, the culture, or the socioeconomic background you are coming from. But this disease can attack, or you can get infected with this disease. So there are more than 50 of them identified by WHO that has been affected by many individuals around the world. So sexually transmitted diseases, some of these diseases produce only minor symptoms. You may have them and you may not know that you have them. Some of them don't show the symptoms. Some of them show, especially in males, they show maybe in either 1, 3, or 4 days or 1 week. You may come to know that this is the disease you have been infected. But in females, at times it can stay with you for like 6 months. Most of the times, maybe a year, you may not know. So the common sexually transmitted diseases that we have around us include syphilis, gonorrhea, trichomonas, vaginitis, chlamydia, and some of those ones that are incurable, like HIV and AIDS and genital herpes. So the consequences of many sexually transmitted diseases are very, very serious, and indeed they can cause you some of your lifespan, because they can make you infertile, can sterilize. Inflammatory diseases like they can affect your pelvic, and they can make you not to conceive. They can also lead to some destruction of some prostate glands, so on and so forth. So it is advised that you take care of yourself. Test, go to the hospital, try to make sure you test yourself in all of these things. So one of the problems with sexually transmitted disease, it can be infected. One can be infected or not know, or I have already said that one. You can infected or not know, especially in girls, So the adolescents are at very critical level of development between the ages of 13, 14 to, let's say, 18. These are the level of adolescence, which these people this group of people at this age, they are sexually active. This group of human beings engages in various sexual activities. Most of them want to practicalize what they see on social media or what they watch, or they want to know. And some of them have risky sexual behavior, most particularly in secondary school where they don't know their left and right. They engage in these sexual activities, not knowing that in the long run it will endanger their lives. So this particular topic, I choose it to talk about it because to talk especially the adolescent girls who may want to engage in sexual intercourse without protection. This sexual transmitted disease can cause their lives. Let's move on. So, the nature of sexual transmitted disease. What is it? We have been talking about sexual transmitted disease, STD. So, sexual transmitted disease or infection are those diseases that are contracted mainly through sexual intercourse. They include the curable ones, as I already mentioned, gonorrhea, syphilis, chlamydia infections, as well as the incurable ones like HIV and AIDS, herpes, simplex, human papilloma virus, hepatitis B infection, and so on. Those are uncurable ones. So if we look at the diagram that I presented before, you can see that you can see the first diagram here. You see the first diagram with male reproductive organ. You can see a whitish something, a whitish something at the tip of the penis. This disease, that whitish something, is a bacteria that produce this infection. It is called gonorrhea, and this gonorrhea is one of the most common sexual transmitted disease that we have. It is caused by a bacteria known as Neisseria. So if you look at it very well, this one in men, if you have this thing less than 2 or 3 days, you will become aware knowing that you have this, because if you want to urinate, it become difficult for you, it become painful for you because the hole within your penis is being blocked by that whitish discharge from your penis, and you find difficult to urinate. Most of the times in men, if they want to urinate, they become some of them even cry. So men with this type of disease may present with a burning sensation while urinating and discharge from the urethra. So women may present with vaginal discharge, lower abdominal pain. A discharge may be whitish, yellowish, and all that. And the smell that this discharge produce is very harmful. It is not good at all. So if we look at the second figure here, is still a male reproductive organ. You see that disease, if you look at the tips close to where the testicles are, holding up to the labs here, those places are swollen up. They are swollen up because of this infection called granuloma. Granuloma is caused by an bacteria called Chlamydia. It's present, if you can see, it's present initially with a small raisins within the area surrounding your anus and the genitals of a woman, which are difficult to differentiate between the child, but it turns out to be concretive resins and lead to painless or raised solid bumps in both sides of the groin area, as you can see there. So it is an infection caused by surgery. It is an infection when you have unprotected sex with the person that have the disease. You may have it, as you can see there. Then, if you look at the third figure here, look at the third figure, you look at a female reproductive organ being destroyed. You see there is destroyed a vaginal area going to anus. Plus this, you can't see anything there. So this one is called herpes genitalis. Herpes genitalis is the most common STD caused by viral infection. The pathogens responsible for this genital herpes is herpes simplex virus type 2. This disease is caused by herpes simplex viruses. Specifically, the type are mostly signs, the blizzard, the ulcers, the soles, the genital area, but it can also affect person without causing such symptoms. You may not see some of these symptoms like that, but a little time you may start experiencing pain within your genital areas. It can affect men too. It may destroy your reproductive organ. At times you may feel swollen, the skin and the outer skin of men may destroyed, and you know what that means for you as a man. So let's proceed. So we are talking about awareness and control of these STDs. So how do we control this? You know, awareness, we all know what awareness is. Awareness and knowledge is the ability to know and become aware of this SDG and their effects on human health. So awareness and control, awareness are very, very important. Components of perception, attitude, leading to a behavioral change. They are important components of sex education that help promote informed healthy choices. So, as schooling is generally compulsory at least up to age 15, sex education should be part of the school curriculum so that as school adolescents are going to school, they should get educated about sex education and become aware of the health risk associated with sexual activities, especially risky sexual activities, on how to protect themselves and others too. Given the today's world that people become aware and tend to have sexual debates at early age. Before now, we were told that our grandparents used to have sex around ages 20, 30, or thereabout, or before they marry, virginity was one of the most important thing in marriage. In the tribe where I come from, before you marry, virginity was taken as one of the most important things, because if your husband discovered that you have been this virgin in your house before he married you, he will buy a wrapper, wrap it very well, make a hole at the center of that wrapper, send it back to your parents, especially your mom. When they open that wrapper and discover that hole, it was to know that yes, this person was this virgin in his house before he left. So the marriage won't hold. And the woman, your mother, will be ashamed of herself that he didn't took care of you well. She did not protect you well before you got married. So people were protected from these STDs. So, but today's world, you can hear that a girl of 14, 15, 16 already have sexual intercourse about 3 or 4 times. So what we need today is to have to become aware of these diseases and the protective measures so that we can correct these effects of the disease and live healthy. So, what are the control measures? What are the control measures? The control measures can be, you have to be know how to consistently and correctly use of condoms, whether male condoms or female condoms. You use them in a correct way. You have to be safe and highly effective. Use safe and highly effective vaccines. If you have been infected, go there, treat yourself very well. Then timely screening and treatment. You have to always go to for checkup, check for if you have STDs, then proceed for treatment. Then also staying faithful to one partner. Don't have multiple sexual partners. Try to be faithful to your partner. And if possible, abstain from sexual activity if you are not married. So, STDs an attainment of sustainable development goals. One of the development goals, goal 3, talked about the overreaching goal, which is specifically to help seek to cure healthy lives and promote well-being for all across the lifespan. So the global health sector strategies on HIV/AIDS, hepatitis, sexually transmitted disease from the period of 2022 to 2030 say that those goals have to be promoted to achieve goal 3 of the SDG in 2022 to 2030. We have to be very, very mindful of these diseases because this is one of the health parts. So these GHSS include 5 strategies, directions that will guide the priority action by countries, and the WHO. One of these strategies says that there should be high quality evidence-based people-centered services to deliver people from these STDs so that people who are infected should have high quality, not only STDs, but the general health. Two, to optimize the system, sectors, and partnership for impact. Those who are in partnership in the health sector should be made to have an impact, optimize the system. All the sectors collaborate for more healthy services. Three, to generate and use data to drive decision for action. There should be more data, more research, so that the data will be drive decision making for attainment of this goal. Four, engage empowered communities and civil society. The civil society and the communities should be empowered and engaged and be enlightened on the importance of this goal to be achieved. Then, last one, the fifth one, foster innovation for impact. Innovate, make people bring new innovation, discovery, research, inventions that may make the STDs and the general health will be reduced so that the overreaching goal of SDG goal 3, which is specific on health and the general well-being of the people. Then, in conclusion, how do we conclude? How do we achieve this thing? This goal, STD and SDGs. How do people become healthy, stay from these restrain from sexual transmitted disease, and so that the SDG goal will be achieved? One of the recommendation that we have profiled is that adolescents should be behaviorally counseled. Adolescents should be counseled, enlightened on the dangers posed by sexually transmitted disease, irrespective of their age, gender, religion, and where they reside, so that to avoid this scourge, if they come aware of, okay, this is what this disease is all about, this is how it's being transmitted, and this is the effect on the health, they will be afraid to involve in risky sexual behaviors. Two, health workers should be engaged in intensive behavioral counseling, as I said up, for all sexually active adolescents, and for those who history indicated that they have increased risk of contacting this disease, there should be intervention to reduce the acquisition and risky sexual behavior, increase knowledge of the use of condoms and other protective measures. Then there should be a behavior change communication. That is, the information, education, and communication should be used by the health psychologists and other counselors to target households, mobilize them, and enlighten them. Some of them may be in primary health care, some of them may be in their household. They should also talk to parents on the importance of sexual education of their adolescent children at home before they take them to school. Then future researches should be conducted to establish the link between the state of awareness and the control measures available for adolescents to take. So different study designs should also assess the factors influencing awareness, prevention, and control of these STDs. And this may be necessary for informed planning and establishment of prudent healthcare system for adolescents and the general public. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate the planners and the organizers of this program, the Instride Pathways, for taking time to bring this thing to celebrate their 100 days. I hope this presentation gets to the people who are supposed to listen and take notes according to this presentation so that at the end of the day it may help their lives. Thank you all.